Hi everyone, this is Kayani with Inventive Mind. Thank you for joining me. And today I have a very special guest, my sister, who is going to join us and give us an interview about state planning. She's an attorney. She does state planning and business law. And she is actually launching her own YouTube channel now. So I'm very excited that she's joining me because she is the one who actually got me to start a YouTube channel when I launched last year. So, I was kept on telling her she should launch now a YouTube channel. She actually been practicing for now 10 years. She had her own
Little more.
practice for a while now. So she's the inspiration why I would decide to go out on my own. Just like with all the videos, I say, as a disclaimer, this is for information purposes only. If you have a specific question regarding your situation, please go see your attorney, because this is more of a general educational purposes video and not for you to think that, it's a legal advice, because you should be talking with the attorney about your specific situation. So with that, I will introduce my sister, Bhashini. I usually call her Bashi, so you will hear me go back and forth slowly. And Bashi, please introduce yourself and tell us what state planning is.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Bhashini here. I am an attorney in California. And estate planning is really a set of documents. It's an umbrella term that we use. And under it, there are several different documents that we are referring to when we say estate planning. Those documents are, generally speaking, there's four: trusts, wills, advanced healthcare directives, and power of attorneys. There are other documents involved depending on the specific situation, but those are the four main ones. And with the estate planning, it is a state level laws that are applying. So as I stated, I'm based out of California, and I am barred in California, so I could give advice as to California, but the information I'm sharing might not be the same in your state, wherever you're located. So if you do have a question, you would want to contact a qualified attorney in your state and talk to them about it, because oftentimes that will make a difference.
And other thing that's very interesting that you do is you also prepare prenups and postnups, because it kind of goes along with, but you don't do any family law, in the sense you don't do any divorce matters and you don't go to court. So please explain what that means.
So there are two types of attorneys. There are transactional attorneys and litigation attorneys. Transactional attorneys creates documents, and it's basically before something happens, you're pre-planning. And litigation is when something goes wrong and you need to go to court, or arbitration or mediation or something of that nature. I am a transactional attorney, so I work with you before you have a problem. And if we do our job right, you won't have a problem. So that's the idea behind transactional. Now, prenups and postnups are things that people get into as they anticipate marriage, or shortly after they have been married, they decide that actually they should have gotten that prenup done, so they wind up doing a postnup. And that impacts how property is held, how liabilities are held, and all of those things, which also can impact your estate. So often prenups are done by family law attorneys and or estate planning attorneys.
Now, is there a reason why also, as a business owner, let's say you launch a business, you have an LLC or corporation, why you may want to get a prenup or postnup or a estate plan in that case?
That's a very big question.
I know.
I also do business law, so I can attempt to answer this. Um,
Yes,
Whenever you're creating a business and however you're forming it, a lot of times there's a lot of considerations that goes into it. If you already have established your business and you have put that blood, sweat, and tears into building that business, you probably don't want to enter into a marriage where from day one of that marriage, everything you're earning becomes both of
community.
yours automatically. Because if you were to get a divorce, then you basically had to figure out which part of that business is owned by the community, meaning you and your spouse, and you're only entitled to half of that. So, a lot of times, if you do have a business, you do want to consider creating a prenup where you actually decide upfront, look, this business is going to remain my separate property, and decide what assets after you get married will become community assets. That way you can be proactive about it. And it's better to do that when you're on good terms, when you love each other, than when you are divorcing each other and no longer on good terms. So just keep that in mind. It's always advisable to do that. Estate planning wise, how owning a business will impact estate planning is that if you were to pass away, what happens with your business? Does it pass to somebody that you care about? Are they going to have control over your business? Are your business partners okay with your family member now controlling part of the business? So these are all questions that you have to discuss both from the business side of things, so you and your partner should have an agreement as to these things, and on the estate planning side of things, so that you and your spouse, children, can have an understanding as to what exactly they're entitled to when you have put together your estate plan.
now, other thing I would mention, because I also do business law, is when I create a LLC or a corporation, I often ask if there's somebody who's married, if they have a prenup in place, or if they are doing something for their business. Because one of the other things is, let's say you do create a business while you're married and you don't have a prenup in place or a postnup, you're, let's say somehow you get into a lawsuit situation and there's a judgment against your business, and some it could draw into your community funds if somehow the business, if they pierce the corporate veil or something because you commingled. So it's also good to know that prenups are or postnups are not always, they are in divorce case scenarios, they also matter when there's judgments or like liabilities, how that liability run to you, your assets versus your spouse's asset as a community.
Yes, so in a prenup, often we will discuss what um, what your client and their fiance want to do exactly when it comes to both assets and liabilities. Prenups allow you to separate those things so that under California law, as soon as you're married, the moment you're married, your community forms, and every dollar you earn is shared between both spouses, and every liability that you incur is shared between the two parties. Um, and what a prenup does is separate that so that you are actually affirmatively saying what will become part of the community, what liabilities, what assets. And that does that can potentially protect your significant other should there be some kind of litigation situation where maybe you weren't keeping up with your corporate formalities, so there was a commingling issue and they are able to pierce that corporate veil, and now you're looking at personal liability. So
Oh,
keep that
in
in
a
mind.
in a case I had come across people who asked me if they need to create a LLC or corporation, because they will be like, well, I'm going to do this, but do I really need something? And often I ask, well, do you have, what assets do you have? Do you have a spouse who have a job? So what's going to happen? Because in that case, definitely there's not even a corporation that is there to shield you. So you go directly to the community if there is some kind of an issue. So just to keep in mind. The other thing that very relevant at this point, because we actually recording this in end of March 2020, and like a lot of you know that California is under lockdown, shelter in place order, just like a lot of places around the country and around the world. So because of the COVID-19. So one of the things you hear a lot right now is about the do not resuscitate orders, medical directives. So I thought one of the reasons I wanted to have Bhashini on the channel is to kind of talk about these documents. What do they mean? Do they have other names people refer to? And do you actually need to go see an attorney now, or what are the solutions out there? Like, can a hospital give you any documents too? Bhashini?
So again, a big umbrella question there. So, uh, a do not resuscitate is simply a form that you sign with your doctor that says basically not to use resuscitation to bring you back if you code. Uh, that is different than an advanced healthcare directive. Advanced healthcare directive is a document that we create where you can list what your end of life choices are. It's a lot more comprehensive than a do not resuscitate. There might be aspects of that going into the document depending on what your choices are, but we are naming what your end of life choices are. When should they pull the plug? Um, what should they use ventilators type of treatments? Should they use painkillers to alleviate your pain? There's a lot of those kind of questions that come into play. What it also does is let you choose who who your agent is, who should make those choices for you if you're not able to. So in the current environment, when we are hearing a lot about the pandemic and what it's doing to patients, where they're going into the hospital, they're being placed on ventilators, and potentially they're put into a medically induced coma, they're no longer able to communicate what their end of life choices are. And in that situation, there might be multiple people in that person's life that wants to make the medical decisions. It might be the parents, it might be a sibling, it could be a spouse, it could even be a friend. But what you can do with an advanced healthcare directive is appoint the person that you trust to make those decisions for you. And that way you minimize that infighting that's happening between your family members and ensure that your wishes are adhered to. Now, if you do want an advanced healthcare directive, you can reach out to attorneys. There are a lot of attorneys who are able to assist through remote work. So they can work with you via the telephone and video conferencing and get the information they need to create those documents for you. There are also, at least in California, we have this, and I'm sure other states have it as well. There are statutory forms that you could find online and you could fill it out. So you don't actually need to hire an attorney if that's all you're trying to do is appoint an agent. And lastly, when you enter into a hospital, hospitals have those forms. So you could ask them if they have a form and you could sign it right there as you're being admitted. So those are all things that you can consider. Now, in that scenario, you have capacity to make those decisions and you're entering into the hospital with that ability to do so. But in a scenario where you collapse in your own house and ambulances are taking you into the hospital, maybe you don't have capacity anymore, in which case it would have been much more prudent to have downloaded it yourself online and filled it out and executed it. So keep that in mind. You don't necessarily want to wait for the hospital, but if you are already in the hospital, then there is that option of asking the hospital. But that's not the best option. The best option will be to do it yourself or reach out to an attorney.
If you have this kind of document, where do you recommend keeping it, and who should know about this in
So,
this kind of case? Because if you collapse at your own place, who, the
so there are several things that we tell clients to do because advanced healthcare directives generally are not recorded anywhere. So what that means is there isn't some large database where the doctors could tap into, and there it is for a lot of reasons, but privacy being a big reason. Um, but what you can do is, if you execute one, give a copy to your primary care physician so they could put it on their file. The other thing that you can do is give a copy to your agent, or let them know that you have created the document and where they can find it in your house. Make sure that it's a location that they can access. So don't put it in a place where they have to find a key to open it, or in a secure deposit box at a bank, because now they have to get a key and other things to go down to the bank and then deal with the bank's bureaucracy to get access to it. So you want to make sure that you're keeping it safe, but someplace that your agent can access. And then lastly, the other piece of advice that we often tell clients to do is you could create a little card that you insert into your wallet, where you write that you have an advanced healthcare directive, so that if ambulance or um, first responders are coming to your house, they're likely to look for your wallet, and they're likely to find it then, because they're gonna look for your wallet to get your insurance information, to see if you have a do not resuscitate card in there, and all these other things. So it's a good place to put one of those things as well.
Thank you, Bashi. That's a lot of good information. Like you said, I did ask a lot of complex questions. So I think we should do this again because there's a whole bunch of other questions I want to ask, but I'm going to save it,
Okay.
you know. And I think given that, the topic we discuss is very serious topic, and we are in a very serious time. There are things going on. So taking back a little bit to the mindfulness, I would like to ask Bhashini, what do you do to keep yourself, not going into anxiety and fear?
So I find that journaling is working really well for me. A lot of times just writing down how I'm feeling, whatever thoughts that are floating in my head at the moment, will help me to curb those anxiety tendencies that creep up on you, especially in a situation like this where the pandemic is a situation where we have very little control over what's happening out there. We can only control what we can do ourselves. So I keep in mind what I can control and what I cannot control. And I do my best to do the things that will keep everybody safe right now, which includes practicing good hygiene and staying indoors.
Okay, so I love that because, and I do know that you also do guided meditations,
I do.
which is, I think is really a key right now to keep going back to meditation. So, and with that, I thank Vashini for joining, and I will put information about her YouTube channel below with this description. And I will also put her contact information if you have a question for her. And like I said in the beginning of the video, this is for educational purposes. So if you have a question, please go see your attorney in your area and specializes in this field. So thank you again, everybody, for joining for this video. And if you like this, please like, share, and subscribe. And I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Bye.